welcome to the 4th episode of Let's Get Quilting. My name is Maureen and I am a quilter. So in the first 3 episodes we have covered a lot of information on how to make a quilt. And in this episode we are going to start zipping along, and we are going to make 3 quilt blocks this time. And I know that seems like an awful lot, but they're easy blocks and they really whip up fast. And I thought that we would do a few blocks this episode. We're going to do a few blocks next episode. And then on the 6th episode, we are going to put this whole quilt together. Now, if you're like me, by this time I get antsy to get the quilt done. And so I thought that we would really progress and try to get all of our information and our sewing experience and put it to great use. So at the end of the last episode we had 2 blocks completed. We had the 9-patch block and we had the Old Maid's puzzle block. And in this episode we are going, as I said, to do 3 blocks. And those 3 blocks are called the Ohio Star, Buttercup, and Arkansas Traveler. I love that they've named these blocks, and I have no idea where the origins of these blocks come from. I just think that they're fun. So the first block that we are going to look at today is the Ohio Star. And this block, as you can see, it follows the same pattern as far as a 9 coordinates. Okay, so you have 3 on the top, 3 on the side, 9 altogether. So this is called the Ohio Star, and we are going to make this right now. So these are my fabrics that I've gone ahead and already cut out. And so this is my background fabric. I need 3.5-inch squares, and I need 4 of them. I need 1 4¼ square. And on this one, I am going to bisect it from the corner to corner on both sides. So I end up with 4 triangles. I'm going to show you how to do that on my next fabric. So on this one, this is my fabric number 3, and I've gone ahead and I've drawn the diagonal corner to corner, both corners. Okay? And what we are going to do is we are going to cut on those lines. So hold on. And then you are going to need the 3rd fabric. You are going to need 2 4¼ squares, again bisected on the diagonal, both diagonals. And then your center piece is just a 3.5-inch square. So this is what I was talking about when I said we are going to bisect on both diagonals. And this is what we mean. One of the things that it is important is that you keep your fabrics steady while you cut on both diagonals, because you don't want to mess up your triangles. So I'm going to get a ruler and my rotary cutter, and I'm going to put my ruler on the first diagonal line, corner to corner. And then I'm going to put it on the second diagonal line, corner to corner. And now we have the 4 triangles. Quilting, like everything else in life, has always 2 to 3 ways that you can do something in order to achieve the same outcome. I am just showing you one way to do it. This is the way that the block pattern has been laid out that I chose. But if you find a better way to do it, I say go for it. Always in quilting, I've learned something every time I quilt. And I think that's important. We always have to stay teachable. Even if it's just a small little item that we learn or pick up or whatever, it's good to be able to keep an open mind. So again, I am just showing you, a way to do the quilt blocks, and I hope that you're enjoying this. So we are going to now go ahead and put the Ohio Star together. I've laid out all of my pieces in the exact order in which they will appear in the Ohio Star pattern. And again, this is the Ohio Star. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to make these quarter square triangles. And how we are going to do them is we are going to attach, so we're going to put these together just like this. Okay, and then these together. Now this is where pinning will come in handy. So I am going to pin on the seam in which I want to have sewn. And if you've probably noticed, I don't pin a lot. And it's only because, oh, I'll be perfectly frank, I'm pretty lazy about it. But there are times that I do pin so that I don't mess myself up. And this is one of them. I have all my pieces pinned on the seam that I want to sew. So now I'm going to bring it over to the sewing machine and sew them. The one thing that I would caution is that these are little pieces, and we want to make sure that the needle doesn't grab them and tuck them under. So we want, in order for that not to happen, what I do is I lift up my presser foot and I put the piece just almost to the needle, and then I start my sewing. It's really important that when you have a point like this, that you, as you see, a point, okay, that we're going to sew, we want to make sure that the needle doesn't grab it and suck it into the machine. So I open up my presser foot and I bring it right to the needle and then start sewing. And I sew slow because I want to have control over the piece as it is so small. So again, I'm going to just pick another one and start sewing. So I've went ahead and sewn all of the pieces together, and I also pressed them all together. And if you'll notice that I pressed each one of them to the dark side. So in the last thing that we need to do is again cut off that little dog ear that I've talked about before. So we're just going to snip that off, and I've done the rest. And now the pieces are able to be lined up together. So in order to make this little quarter square triangle that we are going to do, we have 4 of them. We're going to have to align our fabrics together. So we want to have opposites. And also these 2 background fabrics, we want to have them lined up together. Okay, so we don't want to have these 2 like that. That's what we do not want. We want these 2 together. Okay, So again, I am going to go and sew these together. And if you notice, when we put them together, because we've sewn them to the dark sides, they butt up very nicely to each other. Here we have all of the pieces put together. I've gone ahead and pressed open the seams. That way, again, to reduce the bulk. The other thing is that I've gone ahead and cut off all the dog ears. So now we can put our Ohio block star together because we have all of the components. So we're going to follow the pattern piece and we're going to put our pieces together. What I like to do when I'm putting a quilt together and I'm putting quilt blocks together, I like to have all of my pieces cut. If I have to mark them, I like to get them all marked at once. And then I like to sew all the pieces together, all the small pieces, and then I sort of gradually work from the small pieces to the larger pieces. I find that this is the best method for me. I don't like to stop and start to say cut another color out. I like to have all of everything ready all at once. Kind of like when you cook. You have all your ingredients out at once, then you don't have to stop and chop something else up or measure something. I like to have everything out there. I usually put it in a box or I lay it out on my sewing table. That way I can just grab the pieces and sew along. And to me, that works out great for me. With that said, we now have our 4 quarter square triangles. Oops, I always get this confused. Quarter square triangles all made, and we have 4 of them. And so now we're going to put the block together, and we have all of our pieces all cut. So here we go. And this is what the Ohio block star that we have sewn together, what it will look like. Now what I will do is I am going to go ahead and I am going to put these pieces together in the order in which they are. Once these rows are sewn together, then I will sew the first row to the second to the third, and if we had more, so on and so forth. And that's how I like to do it. I like to get a whole piece, a strip put together, and then as the strips multiply, then I start putting them all in order in which they are needed to be. So I am going to go ahead and sew these together. I will iron them and then we'll come back. The rows are now all put together, or the strips are all put together. And before I attach the rows to each other, I just wanted to show you how I ironed them. So what I did was I ironed the first row or the first strip outward, the second strip inward, the third strip outward. And then again, when I go to put them together, they will nest very nicely together. So I will now sew the rows together and we'll have the Ohio star block. And now, through the magic of television, we have our block all made. And this is the one that we just made. So what I ended up doing was I ended up pressing, and I will show you, I ended up pressing the seams open on the rows. So these are the strips, these are the rows, and I ended up pressing the seam open to reduce, as I said before, the bulk. So now I have 4 different Ohio stars, and I just wanted you to see them, and they're pretty nifty. Different colors, again, make this block look different. So now we're going to be on to our next block, and this is called the Buttercup. Is that not cute or what? Right? Just the Buttercup. Very easy. Again, it follows the 9-patch grid. And this one is a very easy puzzle block to put together. And we're going to show you how to do it. You will need 4 fabrics. you will need to cut out of your first fabric 3 3 1/2 squares. You will need to cut a 2-inch square. You will need to cut a 3 1/2 by 2-inch rectangle, and you'll need 2 3 7/8 inch squares. From fabric 2, you will need to cut 1 3 1/2 inch square and 1 3 7/8 inch square. From fabric 3, you will need to cut a 2-inch square. And from fabric 4, you will need to cut 1 3 7/8 inch square. On the back side of fabric 1, these are going to line up to your other 2 3 7/8 inch squares, and we are going to make these as half square triangles. And if you recall, how we do that is we draw a line from corner to corner, just one line, corner to corner, and we are going to sew. Once the line is drawn, we will sew 1/4 of an inch on either side of the line, and then cut it in half to make our half square triangles, which these are. These are our half square triangles. These are our half square triangles. These are our half square triangles. So, you know, our technique from the Old Maid's puzzle is coming in handy. I have all my pieces put together in the order in which the strips are to be sewn. The only thing that we now have to do is put together is this one block. So these are small pieces, and just be careful when you go ahead and put them together. So I am going to sew the two 2-inch squares together first. I'm going to sew those together, and then once those are sewn together, I will put the 3 1/2 by 2-inch rectangle on top of them, and they will make this block right here. So let me go ahead and do that, and I will be back. So my last block is sewn together, and now I can sew my strips together, then I can sew my rows together, and then we have another block. So let me get to that, and I will be right back. Here's our finished block, the buttercup. Isn't that cute? So what I did was I pressed, and I will show you, I pressed the strips in the opposite direction, and I pressed the rows open, similar to what we've been doing all along. And that is a very easy block to make, and here's just another example of it, just the opposite. But yeah, isn't that cute? And you don't even have to water them. The next block that we are going to tackle is called the Arkansas Traveler. Now this block does not follow the 9-patch grid. I thought we'd take a little varying from that and try our skill at this. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of small parts, but nothing that you can't do. And we've tackled just about everything so far that is included in this block, and we will put these together. These are the requirements you are going to make for the Arkansas Traveler. It is 3 colors. So what we have is, for your first fabric, you want to cut 8 2 3/8 inch squares. For your second fabric, you're going to cut 2 by 5 inch rectangles. And your third fabric, you will cut 2 3/8 inch squares and 8 2-inch squares. This fabric number 1, the light color, we are going to draw a line corner to corner because we are going to make half square triangles. And again, even though these are little, these are still half square triangles, and this is what we're going to make. I have finished putting together the half square triangles. Aren't they cute? They're adorable. And I pressed all of them to the dark side. And we have 16 of those. And so these 3 pieces together are going to make up one block, this block here. And there are 4 blocks in the, there are 4 units in the block. I guess that's a better way to say it. So what I do now is I'm going to line them up in the order to which they will be sewn so I don't get confused. Because even though it looks like, oh, they're all together, and she did, you know, put it all together very fast when the camera is off, there have been a few seams that have been ripped out, and so I don't want you to think that this is, you know, it's easy, but it still takes time, and it takes patience, and as we all are human, we make mistakes. And so I use my trusty friend, the seam ripper, to rip out things that I make a mistake on. All right, so now I am going to put these together. So what I need to do is I'm going to make this strip right here. So it's a half square triangle, a 2-inch block, and then another half square triangle, and that makes one little strip. Then one of these strips will be sewn, and then again just a little half square triangle, a solid block, and a half square triangle, and that will make up one unit, and we have 4 to make. So now I have my unit pieces together. I have the 3 strips sewn together, and now I'm going to put these rows together. What I did as far as the pressing is concerned is I pressed the strips on, I pressed the seams just open, and on the rows I pressed the seams into the center. And hopefully that'll eliminate the bulk. One thing I want to caution about again is just making sure that these are in the correct orientation before you start to sew, as it can get jumbled up, and if it does, then the block doesn't look correct. So we just want to make sure that we double check everything so that we don't use our friend the seam ripper. In this episode, we covered a lot of information. We made 3 more blocks, and we made the Ohio Star. We made the Buttercup. And we also made the Arkansas Traveler. And those are all great blocks. And in episode 5, we are going to cover another 3 blocks. We are going to make the London Eye, the Friendship block, and also Butterflies on Parade. So all 3 of those are very simple blocks to make, and they incorporate, just like this episode, they incorporate the techniques that we've learned so far: half square triangles, quarter square triangles, sewing on the 1/4 of an inch seam, and pressing. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have, and I look forward to seeing you on Let's Get Quilting.